Are we buying or selling early season Pacers trends? Some fun stuff and not fun stuff going on with this team. Let's play a game of buy or sell and see if we can pinpoint how we feel about some stuff going on with the Pacers this season. Plus, Portland and Sacramento this weekend and some tough road games coming up. The schedule getting brutal for the Pacers. Lots to cover today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers as always. My name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and the West Side Community News. And today we're going to play a game of buy or sell. I'm going to play by myself, but it's still a fun game to play of looking at some early season Pacers trends. I've seen a couple other podcasts do this kind of idea of buying or selling early season trends and what it means for the team. And so I'm going to look at some Pacers trends and see if I think they're good or bad. Some of them are good trends. Some of them are not good trends. I think it's a fun exercise. I workshopped the trends from the lovely people on Twitter. Thank you, Internet. Then we're going to look ahead at this weekend. Pacers play the Blazers and Kings to kind of, not too tough starts to the road trip, but still tough games. They've struggled in Portland for all of time. The Kings swept them last year. So no easy stuff. And then, of course, the slate does not get any easier. The Pacers have a ridiculously hard schedule up till Thanksgiving. So lots to get to. Let's just jump right in and talk about buy or sell. But first, a quick little announcement about the future of the Locked On Pacers podcast. It's very weird to be saying something like this because Adam and I have been hosting this show together since 2016. Paul George was still on the Pacers when we started doing this, but it's weird to announce this. It's weird to announce a change to the show, but Adam will no longer be a co-host of the Locked On Pacers podcast going forward. He will still be occasionally coming on and talking with me, being a guest and being featured. We still have great chemistry talking together. We're still friends in life, but just some other conflicts made it impossible for him to continue being a co-host of the show. So, I mean, it was an unbelievably fun run talking about this team with him for years and years and years and having many stupid arguments about players that aren't even on the team anymore and many great conversations, and covering the Vic year was so special. But unfortunately, we are no longer partners on this journey of growing the show. I'm still here. I will still be trying to grow the show going forward. No co-host as of now. We'll see what happens going forward. But now the Locked On Pacers podcast hosted by Tony East is what we have going on and will be in the immediate future going forward. So reach out to Adam at Twitter at FreemanAdam5. Let him know how much you've enjoyed listening to him and having him be a part of your day for over a half decade. I mean, we've done this for such a long time. It's crazy that I had to say something like this. We were thinking about saying something yesterday, but just couldn't quite find the time to do it. So yes, it's strange that he was on a show yesterday and then I'm announcing this by myself today, but just sort of how it went. So yeah, please reach out to Adam and let him know how you're feeling. But yeah, a lot more of me. I'll be on every show and then more guests. I'm sure you saw when Adam was on vacation, there were a lot of guests. That will kind of continue. Some in the Pacers sphere, some in the Indy sphere, some that cover other teams, the opponent the Pacers are playing. So still a lot of other people, still a lot of fresh voices, still a lot of conversation, which I think is important to making a good basketball podcast entertaining and still valuable in getting the information to you guys, which I think is a key part of all this. So let's play buy or sell. Now that that is out of the way, it's going to be awesome. I'm really excited to continue to make this show grow and be as good as it can possibly be. And if I'm falling short of that, please let me know and I will make it better. Buy or sell topics ranging from a starting player to a bench player to a concerning trend about the Pacers on defense. And that one, I'm going to, spoiler alert, I'm kind of buying an issue there. So let's start with a good one that I think I'm going to buy. Jeremy Lamb is a really good three-point shooter now, and I am buying it. So let's jump back to why I just spelled Jeremy Lamb's name wrong trying to pull up his basketball reference page. But he's shooting 48% from three this season. As we know, he shot over 40% from three last season. And last year, his defense was terrible, but he kind of made up for it by being a good shooter. And I talked about, in the context of his growth as a player and his fit on the Pacers, like some of the reason he got better as a shooter, and this happened to Oladipo as well, is when you have really rough knee injuries, there's a time in your rehab where you can't really work on anything but your shooting and your form, right? And it really helps these guys become better shooters. And when Jeremy Lamb returned from injury, his stroke looked fantastic. He didn't have the same burst, he couldn't jump as high, but his catch and shoot jumper was special, and that's why he shot over 40% last year. Now this year, he still has that refined shot form, that great catch and shoot ability, and then now he has that pull up and that burst that he had prior to getting hurt. Maybe not quite the same level, but very, very close. So in tandem, that gives him versatility to be open to shoot a lot or to create his own good looks, especially from deep. And we've been seeing that pay off. Now, 40% last year, I buy 3.6 attempts per game. He took 128. This year, he's only taken 27. So I'm not going to say 48% is necessarily sustainable. I mean, it's not. That'd be league leading by a ton. He'd suddenly be in the Joe Harris conversation, stuff like that. You'd try to actively make him a movement shooter if he's a 48% three-point shooter, even on only 4 attempts a game. I don't think he's that level of guy, but even an 8% drop still gets you above 40%, which is like the line of big threat, make guys chase you around, stuff like that. And I think he can be that guy. Remember how good Vic was shooting threes when he returned right away, and his numbers dipped that year, but even then he came back and took over 7 a game that first time back, and he shot 36% with the Pacers before he got traded in the 2020-21 season. So he definitely got a more refined three ball, and one hot stretch sort of defined his three-point shooting arrow with the Pacers for Vic. But if he didn't start hot with the team, I think we would have seen him grow as a shooter after his injury in the same way we're seeing with Lamb. So this trend, Jeremy Lamb, really good shooter now, I think I kind of buy it. Still has tons of holes in his game, but that's a nice trend for the Pacers to have, an off-ball guard who can bury threes like that. All right, another trend. Am I buying or selling that the Pacers have a fouling problem? A fouling problem. The Pacers are third in the league in fouls per game this season. They have 8 guys averaging 2 or more fouls per game. Don't be dummy and do math. That's 16 amongst just 8 guys, and they play 10 or 11 every game. They're way up there in the fouls. So, do I buy that the Pacers might have a fouling problem? I kind of had to go back in time to think about this. Last year under Nate Bjorkgren, they were so aggressive defensively. In theory, the way he wanted to play defense would be conducive to more fouls. Guys would get beat off the dribble more. Guys are fighting around more screens. Guys are chasing other players in stupid ways sometimes. That team finished with the 8th most fouls on the season. 2 years ago, under Nate McMillan, the perfectly regimented, not perfect. They were 6th in D, not 1. They weren't perfect, but the really ironed out everything, the most simple, best defensive principles, Dan Burke style defense. That team that was so good on D was 22nd in fouls. And the reason I bring up those past 2 seasons with different coaches isn't necessarily to say, the scheme is responsible for fouls, but that in those 2 seasons, they had largely the same roster as this year. Vic was on those teams for times, and Jakar Sampson played. There's Doug McDermott. There's a few guys that are out and in along the way, but Brogdon, Turner, Sabonis, Lamb, McConnell, like those guys are all a part of that span and have been playing a ton in that interim time. TJ Warren, although he's been hurt. So there's just a ton of overlap from roster to roster that makes me sell that the Pacers are a high foul team this year. They have been a little less disciplined on that end of the floor than you'd like. But I attribute the fouls to a couple things. One is they're playing Chris Duarte a lot, who is more of a foul-prone guy as a rookie, just because he is occasionally out of position, stuff like that. And 2, they've really enhanced their point of attack and defense in general in these last couple of games. They were just learning a new system in sloppy at the beginning of the year, but it is a lot simpler this year. I think that they're going to end up in a foul rate about 10th or 11th. I still think they'll probably be below average. We saw that last year when they were really aggressive. They finished 8th. So I still think that's a negative. Like, fouling a lot is bad. Free throws for the other team is bad, but I don't think it's something that's going to end up where it is now, where it's been a huge problem that they can't keep guys off the line. Another reason, though, that I think the numbers will fall is they've already played against Kevin Durant, James Harden, Giannis, Jimmy Butler, guys who are excellent at baiting into fouls, getting to the free throw line. And they did a good job of keeping some of those guys off the line in general. But just in the player types they struggle with too, your Anunoby types, your Julius Randle types. They've already played a lot of those guys. When their schedule gets easier too, their foul rate will go down. So Do I think their fouling could be some sort of a problem as the season progresses? Yeah, a little bit. Do I buy that they're going to be a really bad foul team, which has been a problem for them so far? No, I don't. I sell that. I think they'll get better at that as the season goes on, as they get better at Carlisle's defense and as their schedule gets easier. The last one that I thought was interesting to talk about this season, Malcolm Brogdon, good rebounder, better rebounder, right? Brogdon, and we've talked about this on this podcast all the time in the past. The Pacers' rebounding struggles last year, where they finished bottom 5, right? Yes, 26th. You can pin it on a lot of stuff generally, but it's mostly, to me, beyond a little bit of weakness from Turner, a lot of weakness from their guards. The Pacers' guards were not good rebounders last year, and they haven't been for the last 2 years. Carlisle has put an emphasis for those guys specifically on getting better on the glass. And we've seen already guys like Chris Duarte looks good, occasionally crashing the offensive glass. He's a decent rebounder. Torrey Craig at 4 a game coming in from the perimeter. Duarte's at 4.6 per game, by the way. That's impressive. Justin Holiday's at 2.8, which is a tick up from previous seasons. But Brogdon specifically stands out as a guy who first season with the Pacers, 4.9, second season, 5.3, third season right now under Carlisle, 7.2 per game, 5.8 defensively. So I think that you can't say neither buy or sell. That defeats the purpose of the exercise. But this trend is fascinating to me because as the Pacers become more of a hit-ahead, doesn't care who takes the ball up into a distant team, that in turn means they don't care who is crashing the glass as much, right? Like if you're a team that likes to get it to specific guys to take it up the floor, you might want to have those guys not crash the glass so they're available for outlet passes. But Brogdon is crashing the glass more defensively. I think that's a bit of a tactical decision. It's not like so much more. It's a little more. So I think that decision does help in general his rebound numbers go up. There's a reason they're so high, and him getting better at that has helped them go from, again, bottom 5 in rebounding last year to 15th this year league average, which average isn't great. It's not what you strive for, but given where they were at last year is a big deal. The other reason I buy this, a lot of times with guards, they just get long rebounds. Like the ball just ends up to them in their big rebounding nights. But the Pacers currently are giving up the 6th worst 3-point percentage to opponents. They're not even getting as many long rebound opportunities as some of these other teams are in general, right? Other teams are just making threes a lot, and they're giving up a low amount of attempts, so maybe there's a little bit of balance there. But in general, I think Brogdon's just done better at his like technique and ability to rebound in general, just as a physical guard and a sizable guard. You'd think he'd be better at it than he was. And 2, there's a small tactical difference that makes me very slightly want to say I buy that Brogdon has gotten him better at rebounding, that's something he worked on this season. And that's a big deal for the Pacers. So I am buying the good things and selling the bad things in this segment. Maybe that was 2 Pacers-colored glasses of a way to do this. But those are some trends that have been interesting to me. Why are the Pacers better at rebounding? Why is Jeremy Lamb a better three-point shooter? Why are they bad at fouling? And that's still a negative. So any of those things falling off would be very concerning. Not very, that's extreme, but would be somewhat concerning for this team for one reason or the other. Their second unit has been bad at shooting. Their guards have been bad at rebounding for a while now, stuff like that. Any of these changing would be concerning. So, we'll see where those trends progress. I think they're certainly worth monitoring as the schedule continues to be difficult. Can those guys succeed in those key areas? We'll see. I'm looking forward to it. So let's pivot. Real games. Let's preview some actual games the Pacers have coming up this weekend. They're going to be tough, right? Portland's tough. The Pacers hadn't won there in eons prior to last season. I think that was pretty well documented. Not actually eons, but a fairly long time. And Sacramento, they lost there last year. I think that was Vic's last game played in the Pacers uniform. And then they lost at home in the infamous Patadze Foster spat game, right? So maybe they want to beat the Kings to just cleanse the Kings' palate from last season. So let's talk about the weekend ahead. But first, I got to talk to you guys about 2 great groups of people. The first one, the good folks over at McDonald's, because this episode of Locked On Pacers is brought to you by McDonald's, who've been proudly serving communities since 1965. McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's a place where friends and family can come to reconnect. My friends go out there sometimes after a night out, a place where classmates can meet up for a study group, knowing they'll have good Wi-Fi and fries, a place where win or lose teammates and competitors, the home team, the away team, whoever, can go to recharge. And it's a place you can always look forward to stopping at on a long road trip to rest those legs and refuel. I used to go there with my dad after Little League games, my mom to get McFlurries, or when I did well on tests, I got to go there a lot. So I have some positive experiences there as a kid. You got to go to McDonald's. Go there, refuel, reconnect, and Did somebody say Locked On Pacers watch party? Maybe someday. McDonald's, ba-da-ba-ba-ba. I'm loving it. And let's talk about Calm, because did you know what makes LeBron James King James? The answer is sleep. That's right. Sleep is his superpower, and Calm is the number one app for sleep and meditation. And it has teamed up with LeBron James to help you activate the power of sleep. When it comes to athletes, we always focus on physical fitness. Pacers, team of injuries, certainly are the case there. But there's another side to that, mental fitness, and Calm, the number one app for sleep and meditation, has teamed up with LeBron to help you train your mind and become the champion version of yourself. LeBron and Calm know what your mind is like, is unlike any other muscle in your body, and you don't have to be a world champion to learn how to train it. Calm can help you train your brain better so you sleep better, reduce your stress, and perform your best. For LeBron, it's a critical part of his mental fitness routine. And as he says, getting good sleep and finding time to rest is one of the most valuable things I can do for my body. So if you need help, go to calm.com/LockedOnNBA. For a limited time, you'll get 40% off of a Calm premium subscription. With Calm, you have access to nature scenes like LeBron loves the rain and leaves ones, and so much more. Helpful sleep stories for meditations to get you ready for any challenges life throws your way. Again, for a limited time, our listeners can join LeBron and using Calm and get a 40% discount on a Calm premium subscription at calm.com/LockedOnNBA. Unlock content to help you focus, ease stress, and sleep better. Calm.com/LockedOnNBA. That's calm.com/LockedOnNBA. Okay, 2 games this weekend for the Pacers. Chance to get to 5-6, chance to potentially fall to 3-8. Precarious position for a team on a slow start to be. You never want to lose both of these, especially looking at what this road trip looks like after this stretch. So let's look at what the Pacers are up against this weekend. Portland and Sacramento. Will recap these games next week on Monday. Look back at what we just saw from this Pacers team. And I start with Portland, and I have no idea what to make of the Portland Trailblazers and how to talk about this team for you guys, because in theory, we kind of know what Portland is. Kind of like the Pacers, they've had a similar roster for a while, and we know kind of what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are. They've made some tweaks like Cody Zeller and Larry Nance with their second unit, really bolstering their front court, and Anthony Simons looks better this year. Finally, some youth stepping up for this team. So, they have better players and they have youth stepping up, and they take the fourth most threes and they make the 10th most. That sounds like a great recipe. And they're fifth in rebounding. Like, they're doing well in the possession game and shooting this well. And they're 3-5. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. They just lost to the Sixers without Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, obviously. So what does this come down to? Well, Damian Lillard has been not bad. Dame can never be bad. He always has so much impact just by existing on the basketball court, scaring the F out of defenses. Dame is shooting 35% from the field right now, 23% from deep on 9.6 attempts per game. Basically, every other Blazer is shooting well from the field. He's making a lot of his free throws, but only getting up 4 a game. 8.5 assists is good. He's been setting up his teammates well, and that's part of why their offense looks so strong. But when Dame is this weak, even if other guys are stepping up, the Blazers just run into an impasse of they can only do so much. These guys have their limitations. McCollum as a scorer is excellent. He was really great last year before his injury, looking a little bit like that guy, but they're still they don't have enough punch without Lillard really being that guy. So how do you preview this team from a Pacers perspective? We've seen a lot in the past where they get killed by guys who are slumping coming out of it. Now, sometimes they strategically in the past, especially under Bjorkgren, would leave some of these slumping non-stars open, and then they would just kill them. Dame's not a guy you ever leave open, even if he's slumping. So it's Damian Lillard. You can never discount him having like a 50-point game at any moment. He also could continue to slump. It's hard to preview that exact matchup. Brogdon's defense will be very key for the Pacers in this game. Even if Dame is off, just stay with him, make his life uncomfortable. Make other. I just said they're 4th in 3-point attempts in the league and 10th in percentage. I'd still rather, if you're the Pacers, make other guys beat you than Damian Lillard, obviously. And something else about this game that's fascinating is Nurkic is back and healthy for them after not being so last year, and he's just a beast. And whoever he's battling with is going to be important in this game. Like I said, they do very well in the possessions battle. This Blazers team does. They don't cough up a ton of turnovers. They're right in the middle of the pack there. Low fouling, still get enough steals and stuff like that to keep the possession game even, which is why they're efficient offense. Again, surprising to me that their record is what it is. They have a positive point differential this season. Just a lot of stuff that it's surprising to me that they're 3-5. So the key battles are all going to be tough, but I think that the biggest challenge in this game will be, I know the Pacers have Sabonis and Turner, but the front court depth specifically for the Blazers is really good. Really good. Robert Covington's a special defender. especially as a team defender, and he's hitting threes this year. Like I said, Nurkic is good. Cody Zeller has given the Pacers fits as a rebounder in past seasons. Larry Nance can stretch the floor out on defense. On offense, he struggles a little bit doing that, although he is hitting 36% of his low amount of threes this season. So yeah, Turner and Sabonis can hang with any of that crew. But whoever's at the four, Torrey Craig will have their hands full. O'Shea Brissett, if he plays, will have his hands full. Justin Holiday will certainly have his hands full. Those guys are all more powerful than him. So that's where the Blazers can get an advantage, and that's the way they never have been able to get an advantage in the past, is at the four position. And then, now that they have Anthony Simons playing well, the Norm Powell, CJ McCollum, Anthony guys are all really tough to guard. Torrey Craig might end up on those guys, but it's gonna be crucial that some of these second unit Pacers guards really can defend those guys, because again, I don't want to harp on one stat too much, but if you can get up over 43 point attempts in a game and make over 36% of them like the Blazers do, it's going to be really hard to stop you. And the Pacers defense has been fantastic in their recent winning streak, and really basically outside of the Raptors game, since their opening week, their defense has been pretty good. So can they translate that defense to this style of Blazers play? It's going to be very, very important for them to do that in this game. The Pacers give up a very low amount of three-point attempts to their opponents this season. They might need to try to continue that trend. I would try to make the Blazers beat you in other ways, but it might not matter. Dame could just be Dame, and this game could be over before it even starts. It's really tough to really pinpoint what to expect from this Blazers team, and they're not bad at anything, really. They don't get to the line a ton, I guess, might be one of their bigger weaknesses, but it's really hard to pinpoint something they're not that great at. I guess team defense is their biggest weakness. Now, they give up the most assists in the league, so kind of allowing teams to get into their sets is a problem for them. And for a team with some scrawny guards and some huge post guys, you can see where that could happen and those breakdowns could happen. So perhaps Torrey Craig's offense could be crucial in this game. Perhaps Justin Holiday wiggling free for some of his threes could be crucial in this game. Those wings in general, guys who can spread out the floor, will be big for this team. So look, I think if Dame plays how he has early season and doesn't break out of his slump, the Pacers can certainly win this game. That's a team without their star playing their best. Yeah, of course the Pacers can win. That if Dame looks like Dame from the past, we've seen the Pacers struggle with the Blazers and him for forever, and Brogdon struggles with players that type. It'll be a tough one. I think the Pacers, again, can win. They did it last year. That game was funky, too. Vic didn't play. That was right after the trade got announced, or right before. I forget. That was like the physicals pending period. But I'll be curious to see if the Pacers can find a way to beat this Blazers team. The blueprint is definitely there. We've seen other teams do it. The question is, can they slow down Dame? And the funny thing about the way I just talked about the Blazers is you can apply a lot of those interesting points to the Kings. Not necessarily the 3-point attempts points, but you think of the Kings, and De'Aaron Fox is their guy, right? He's been their best player for 3 years, 4 years, however long he's been in the league. Basically, almost the whole time he's been their best player. And this year, like Dame, really rough start. The Kings are 4-4 right now. They started off decently. Right now, I think they've lost 2 in a row. Oh, they just won the other night, but they had lost 2 in a row before beating the Pelicans without Ingram and Zion. De'Aaron Fox this season, 38.5% shooting from the field, 19% shooting from deep, 62.5% from the line, 18 points, 6.5 assists per game. That's not star level play, right? He has not been as good as he has in the past. Now, the Kings are still getting by because Buddy Hield is hitting 40% on 10 threes a game. Like, that's 12 points. That spaces out your floor a ton. That's crazy. Harrison Barnes has been unbelievable this season. 23.3 points per game on insane splits. Every time I watch the Kings, he's making shots from all over the court. And Rashawn Holmes has just one of the most unique and funky games in the league, so he's really hard to contain as well. And Davion Mitchell's turning heads with his defense despite having very rickety offensive stats so far. So the Kings, by adding a good defensive guard and by having Barnes be awesome, have found ways to still be effective despite Fox's struggles. That sounds a lot like the Blazers. Now, unlike the Blazers, they're not doing it from 3. They're doing it from 2. 7th in the league in 2-point percentage. A lot of that has been Barnes shooting well, decently well inside the arc. He's shooting 52% even from 2, but Halliburton's doing well getting to the rim. Like I said, Rashawn Holmes is excellent inside the arc. Even Davion Mitchell's 55% inside the arc. And Alex Len, Tristan Thompson, those guys in limited minutes have been giving the Kings good stuff around the basket. So they do a good job of driving a lot. That's big for them. And, they don't shoot the ball well from deep, so it doesn't lead to a ton of kick opportunities, but they do take a fair amount of threes, right about league average. So still important to clamp down on Fox, not let him get going crazy. But where the Kings have been thriving so far, this is very surprising for a younger team. lowest turnovers in the league, only 12.8 per game. And they don't force a ton of turnovers, but that allows them to dominate the possession battle, something I talk about very often with the Pacers this season as they foul a lot, right? That hurts them in the possession battle or the efficient possession battle. The Kings try to have more possessions than the other team in their way of getting it done, and that's a smart way to do it to me, right? So that's been their claim to fame. Very low turnovers. No one on their team is averaging more than 2 outside of Fox, right? So I think a key for the Pacers in this game, put pressure on their young guards. Fox is young and is mistake prone despite being very effective and quick. Tyrese Halliburton is in his second year, same kind of deal. Davion Mitchell, same kind of deal. Really get up on those guys early, try to make them uncomfortable, make them make mistakes because the Kings certainly have the weapons to be tough to defend. The Pacers couldn't beat them at all last year. They lost to the Kings twice. Rashawn Holmes is one of the guys that has the skills to actually be tough on Miles Turner because he's got a floater that takes Turner away from the basket, and they've got just enough three-point shooting threats, especially Healed, to be dangerous. So the Kings are no slouch of a team. They have some strange roster construction that's set to be good in the future, but maybe not necessarily right now. But I think the way that they try to win by maximizing the possession battle, 10th in steals, first in not turning the ball over, that kind of stuff works pretty well for them. The other thing that makes me believe that the Kings aren't necessarily as good as their 4-4 record, though, they've been pretty lucky with opponent 3-point percentage, despite giving up a fair amount. So could be an opportunity for the Pacers to get hot from deep, like they did against the Spurs, for example, and just waltz all over the other team, even if they give up 118 like they did to San Antonio. So this one, I think the Pacers, I don't want to say need to win ever. They haven't even played 10 games yet, but looking around at the rest of their schedule, this game's pretty important. Beating the Kings, a winnable-ish game for the Pacers would be nice. And if they can win both of these and get to 5-6, even if they kind of limp till Thanksgiving, where their schedule is really rough this whole time, these are 2 winnable-ish games this weekend. It'd be nice to see the Pacers get both because their schedule is crazy up to Thanksgiving. And that's how I want to close this and talk about the importance of the upcoming road trip and not falling flat on their face because the Pacers schedule, again, is insane in the coming days. So let's take a break and talk about the schedule until Thanksgiving. But first, it's Locked On Pacers, so I got to talk to you guys about the good folks over at Built Bar. And speaking of Thanksgiving, since we're about to talk about the schedule till that point, I love Thanksgiving, all the good food. It's one of my favorite holidays. But if you want a yummy dessert that isn't so full of calories and sugar, you got to try Built Bar. They have new holiday dessert flavors to feast on something delicious and feel good about it. One slice of pie has like 300, 400 calories. That's on the low end. Most Built Bars are only 130 calories and only 4 grams of sugar, but they've got the same flavors: coconut cream pie Built Bar, raspberry Built Bar instead of that raspberry pie. You can make those replacements anytime. All these bars are also 100% covered in chocolate, and again, way healthier. I have one all the time at work as my lunch replacement. It's a great option for when you're healthy. If Thanksgiving isn't coming soon enough, maybe you can just eat some Built Bars before Thanksgiving comes. So share some at your family gatherings, make stuff less awkward. New surprises all month, limited time flavors dropping at built.com regularly. So go check them out. You've got to try them. Best tasting protein bars on the market. Mark your calendar. Black Friday will be a huge event over at built.com. So go to built.com, try out Built Bar today. Use the promo code LOCKED15. You'll get 15% off your order. That's LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. So schedule segments sometimes can be boring, but it's very important to me to hammer home this just to set expectations appropriately for fans. And look, fans don't like it when teams lose games, no matter what the reason is. But the Pacers' schedule from now until Thanksgiving is crazy. So it's important to me that, I talk about what's going to go on. So between now, you listening on I'm recording on November 4th, really from the end of the Knicks game until Thanksgiving, the Pacers play 3 home games. They play 3 home games in that stretch. They play the Philadelphia 76ers, who are first in the East. Joel Embiid is amazing. And even without Simmons, have looked fantastic. Then they play the New Orleans Pelicans. Zion might be out for that game. That might be a game the Pacers can say we should win that and get going. And then the day before Thanksgiving, they play the Lakers, who are also fantastic because they have Anthony Davis and Russell Westbrook and LeBron James. Maybe not fantastic. They're struggling a bit this season, but still, those are their 3 home games between now and Thanksgiving. Those are good teams. Meanwhile, on the flip side, I just talked about Portland and Sacramento. Sort of winnable, but tough games. Then they have the dreaded impossible road games. The Nuggets on Wednesday. I'm sorry, I should know that. On Wednesday. And then the next day, Utah on Thursday. Those are the only 2 teams in the NBA that have legitimate home court advantage with the altitude. Winning in either one of those is already hard. That back-to-back is impossible. The Pacers' chances of beating the Jazz on Thursday, probably their lowest chance of winning any game they've had this season, and maybe the lowest they'll have all season. I mean, health permitting, but just really tough 4-game road trip coming up. It's pretty important that they get at least one of the Portland Sacramento duo this weekend because Denver Utah is a really tough back-to-back. And all of that, great job. Now you get 3 and 4 nights at home against the Philadelphia 76ers and Joel Embiid, right? So their schedule just in the next 8 days is really hard. And they've already played 8 games in 13 days to start their season, really, or 9 games in 14 days or something. I can't do math quickly, but yes, 9 games in 14 days. So they've been rapid fire through games now. Then they have a tough stretch. Then they finally get to sleep in their own beds to immediately fly to New York, Detroit, Charlotte on the road, right? And we've already seen them lose to Charlotte. New York, they were within 3 with 6 minutes to go, and the Pacers won. They are better than the Knicks, but that's still a tough game. Winning in MSG is difficult, and Detroit's an easier game, but it's on the road. It's you never know. So it's a tough stretch. They come home for that New Orleans game, and then at Chicago, who is killing it right now, near the top of the East, and then the Lakers at home. It's not insane that the Pacers are like 7 and 13 by Thanksgiving, which looks bad, but their schedule is just so hard. It's so hard. They've already played a bunch of good teams, and they've been so close in these games. It doesn't matter. They lost them. The record is not what they want it to be. Whatever. If the Pacers are 7 and 13 at Thanksgiving or 8 and 12 or something, which I don't think is that crazy. I mean, to get to 8 wins in their next 11, they have to win 5, and that's pretty hard to find. New Orleans maybe, Charlotte maybe, Detroit maybe. One of the games this weekend, that's only 4. That only gets them to 7. So this upcoming stretch is really rough for this team, especially one that's still acquiring chemistry in a new system, is implementing another starter. So I think it's going to be crucial for fans who, are level-headed. And I know that fans can be not level-headed sometimes. That's fine. You're passionate. Be passionate. Always be a passionate fan. But just keep in mind that if the Pacers are 7 and 13 at Thanksgiving, that does not mean they're having a failure start to the season or that that's where they'll finish the end of the season. It's just they've had a ridiculously hard schedule to this point, and they will continue to do so. Right after Thanksgiving, it's still a little tough. I don't want to break down that schedule at that point, but it's a lot of home games finally, and that's going to be big for this team. So getting wins in the bank now is really nice for this team, given what's coming up for them after Thanksgiving. So 8 wins is I think a reasonably obtainable mark for this team by that holiday time, and that could really set them up well to be well over 500 or around 500 by Christmas, New Year's, which doesn't sound like a lofty goal, but again, their 2022 portion of the schedule is much easier than the 2021 portion. So doing well on this upcoming trip, it's very possible they only win like 2 games in the next 2 weeks, right? They have really hard games. Makes sense. But if they can avoid that, it'd be really huge to set up the rest of their season. The Knicks game's a great place to start. The Blazers and Kings are not insurmountable opponents. They have a chance to set themselves up very well this weekend. And given what's coming up on this Pacers schedule, I think it's kind of key that they try to get off on a strong foot and have a huge weekend in Portland and against the Kings. So that's it for today's Locked On Pacers podcast. A lot of fun stuff. I had fun talking about trends and looking closer at these Kings and Blazers games. Thank you guys a ton for listening. Again, please reach out to Adam and let him know how much of an impact he's had on you as you've listened to the show over the years. And I will continue to make Locked On Pacers an awesome podcast for you guys. I will do the absolute best I can. So thank you guys for listening. Next week on Monday, we talk in this Kings game, the Portland game, big stories from over the weekend, whatever's going on with the team. So stay tuned for that. Everybody have a fantastic weekend, and we will see you on Monday.